surface management with your security testing.
We're going to be talking a lot more about that today. But, Stephen, I want you to do the opposite than what Casey did. Give me some bad advice on doing pen testing.
Overestimate the skills of yourself and your team. Some people say don't do things in a vacuum. That's only because they don't have the cybersecurity ninjas that you have, single-handedly capable of defending against any and all threats.
Okay. Casey, give me some worse advice on that.
Don't listen to your team.
Oh.
There you go. That's bad communications is always a big hit, I think. All right, let's do this.
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
All right, everybody, welcome to Super Cyber Friday. Our topic of discussion is hacking the future of pen testing, an hour of critical thinking about how to continuously manage your threat exposure. And the two people who are joining me today, you just met them just seconds ago. That would be Stephen Harrison. He's the CISO of MGM Resorts International, and Casey Camille, who's the CEO and founder of Sprocket Security. Hey, guess what? Sprocket Security is our wonderful sponsor for today's episode. More about them and more about all this fun stuff of pen testing today. Hey, if you've never been to our show before, here's how to participate. Lots of different ways. There's the chat room. That's a pretty obvious way to get involved. But we also play a game called Best Bad Idea and 10% Better. So what you do is you write you write bad idea, and then tell us how should we not conduct a pen test. The more creative you are, the more fun it is. Also, we'll also do your advice on how to improve pen testing. And I'm just going to throw a challenge to you. Normally, we get way more bad ideas than we get good ideas. I challenge you to come up with more good ideas than bad ideas. But anyone can join us on video if you just type "Bring Me On." Our producer, Aaron, will try to bring as many of you on as possible. You can ask a question for our guests. Please do that. If you look on the right, there's a series of icons. The second one is a little question mark and a speech bubble. Click on that. Enter any question you would like. Also, you can submit a question for our Super Cyber Meetup. That's something we do at the very end of the show. And you can vote for your favorite question. Please do that. So the schedule today, you saw good advice, bad advice, worse advice, your bad ideas, your 10%. We're going to play the public interest. And today, we haven't played in a while, we're going to be playing Fantasy CISO. It's a fun game. Also, your meetup questions, you'll label it meetup. You can do that at any time, but we'll remind you at 45 minutes past the hour. We'll ask questions and answer, and then finally, we'll do our meetup. If you've never joined us at our meetup, we do it on Discord, so make sure you have a Discord account, and it's a lot of fun. I want to meet you because a lot of you that come to this, I don't get a chance to meet at the Discord, and I want to meet you at the Discord. You should join our Discord. All right. And then very lastly, I do want to also mention that our next show, we're not going to have a show next weekend because it's going to be Labor Day weekend, but the weekend after that, hacking tabletop exercises, an hour of critical thinking about it, enhancing incident response readiness. Okay, enough of my yammering on and on and on. Let's talk about pen testing. All right. The classic thing that we hear again and again and again, and I'm going to start with you, Casey, is, well, the once-a-year pen test doesn't work. I will say our audience gets that. You don't need to sell them on that. They totally get it. But what you said in your advice here, and let's just jump to it right away, is you have to combo the attack landscape with classic pen testing. This seems obvious to me, but why hasn't it been obvious to others, I guess?
Yeah, great question. Totally obvious to me because we actually have an attack surface management tool, and we get to see how frequently this changes. And I think people are like, yeah, I get it. You know, my scope and attack surface changes. But over the years, with the push of cloud and DevOps, that's changing even faster and faster and faster. And we're starting to see some silly mistakes that we saw in the past. So if you're not pairing that attack surface management, you're not even testing the right things. And therefore, you're just going to miss a bunch of things, right? So it's important. And it's like, what does attack surface mean too, right? That means many different things to many different people. But from my perspective and the testing perspective, it's how does the hacker look at the attack surface?
point right there. All right. Why do you think? Because again, everyone knows this, Stephen. The same thing. Why hasn't people looking? Because it seems to me like not looking at attack surface management. It's like just looking at somebody's best tip article. Like, oh, we should all do the same thing, right?
Yeah, it's like it's the problem with point in testing or legacy testing versus like pairing attack surface management. This is like having a security guard roam like the Sears Tower or Chrysler Building or Freedom Tower, and like they will get through every floor once a day, and by maybe in 3 months or 2 months they'll have completed like an entire assessment of the building, versus having a surveillance system paired with roaming guards that can check real time and see what the actual risk and current condition is. I mean, that's how I would compare it. And so when you look at attack surface management, you're really looking at a real time perception of your company's public facing entities and like what exists out there in the world today. And so if you're doing point in time, it's just so you're just gonna count on that state never changing, and that's impossible.
Yeah, well, like that's never been the case ever, like ever. By the way, I'm gonna give a tease out to our audience because you mentioned the Sears Tower and pen testing and stuff. I have a great story about a good friend of mine, and I will just give you the tease. It has to do with the Sears Tower, rollerblading, and a security incident. And if you want to hear that story, you're going to stick around for the meetup we have at the end of the show. All right? It's funny. It's very funny. A security incident, rollerblading, and the Sears Tower. All right. So, let's get to. I want to talk about what we're doing with pen testing today and how we're dealing with it, that it's working successfully. Because let me ask Casey, do you consider pen testing with attack surface management the same as purple teaming in a way, or no? Is that not the same thing? What do you think?
Not really the same thing, but I will tell you that there's some benefits there, right?
Okay.
If you allow the transparency into all the testing that's happening, so you take attack surface management, you pair it with the penetration testing methodologies and techniques, you make some discoveries, but if you make that attack that you perform transparent to the organization, then they can get some understanding of, oh, it failed. I know why it failed. It's because I got an alert here. But the pen tester maybe doesn't. They just see failure, right? And so they would move on. Like failure after failure, that is almost like a byproduct of the penetration test. And if you give some controls and visibility and transparency around that, then it's really awesome for the organization, because then they can just kind of gradually move into that purple team if the organization's ready for it.
Stephen, let me ask one question. What have you done this year different in pen testing? You're like, oh my God, why haven't I been doing this all the time? Like it was like a big, like what has been the change that you've seen? And maybe it's not just the last year, maybe the last few years. What do you think?
It's really been around automating the routine tasks. So engaging with partners or automations to commoditize those areas that detract from the skills of the experts you bring in to do work. And so vulnerability scanning, reporting, anything. If I get upset if I see a pen test now that's like a PDF format, if it's not a JSON output or some consumable integration that we can leverage. And because the last thing I want is someone who's like OSCP or certified ethical hacker, like certified, to be copying and pasting findings out of a report into tickets. And so automating these mundane tasks for scanning and reporting and ticket management has really been the focus.
That should be a poll, David. Is poll our audience to see how many people are getting, PDF reports versus actually getting some sort of integrated workflow, digital platform.
All right, Rich or Aaron, could you create a quick poll of that? Well, throw it up. Let's see. Create a quick poll. Let me know when it gets up. All right. So we actually have a question that just came in. Let me throw this one out. This it's kind of out of left field, but I like it. As soon as a question comes in, I like to deal with it. It comes from Gary Longsign, and he asks, Do any of y'all pen testers ever scan the HTTP security response headers on web servers? I'm sure looks to me like almost nobody is aware of these. Yes? No? What do you say?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You do it?
Oh yeah. Yep. And that metadata too, obviously if you have if you have some flaws there, or misconfigurations is a lot of things that we see. If you discover those things, right, obviously you report on them, but it's really interesting because we'll store that as like metadata of what we've seen from the sites. And that allows us to retroactively go back and take a look at certain things, and discover, it takes out the suck and threat and actually hunting for the attack surface and the technology. So if a new exploit comes out, it's like, well, we can go back and take a look at this versus having to rescan everything, wait for the scans to come back and take a look at it. So yes.
I'm pretty surprised about this question. It's good. I mean, you're talking, there's like X-frame options, content security policy, your HTST. These are, if you're running, like us, we are large retail organization, your payment portals and things like this have to be like monitored much more stringently with the new PCI 4 requirements. So we look at this.
By the way, I'm looking, I think we might be equal on bad ideas and good ideas. I think this challenge of coming up with good ideas, as many as the bad ideas, is definitely coming up.
That's a problem with pen testing too that I want to talk about.
What? And that is? Go ahead.
It is much more simple task to point out the flaws than fix them.
Oh yeah. Okay. No. So there was a really good. There was a really good tip here. Yeah, this is from Andrew Aiken, who addressed that very issue. And tell me if this is what he's saying is any different than purple teaming here. Conduct pen tests together with the blue team to log and address vulnerabilities as they are found when possible, and the fixes can be validated. I mean, is he just describing purple teaming here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Marry your engineering and preventative controls in there, so you're proactively not just working on detection, but hardening the environment at the same time. I think that's all bundled together, and
that's the best opportunity to actually test and validate the controls is when the tester is actually conducting that, right? And you can have that communication back and forth.
By the way, the very poll you requested, Casey, is up. PDF, JSON, or others. Say it in the comments. So, what format do you get a pen test report? That is a damn good
others.
Question. I'm glad.
Is that like an oral? Like, don't put it in writing because it's under ACP. Like, lawyers won't let you do that. Is that what?
So so one person said other. So tell us what the other is. Maybe I'd like to see someone write smoke signals. That's how we send it our pen tests. Smoke signals.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to Steven's point, where it's like you have a PDF delivered, and then you have someone in your organization that needs to copy and paste it out into like a Jira, ServiceNow. It's just it's so painful to watch, right? Like why are we doing this still? Stop.
All right, we're jumping to the first.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I'm jumping to the first game. Let's do this.
Do you know what others are thinking? On the public interest.
Not showing. There we go. Show. There we go. The public interest. Here we go. This game is simple. Audience, play along. You know how to do this. And as I always say, it's been a very long time since we've had someone do 4 for 4. It's only going to be 4 questions. It's going to seem very simple. It's extraordinarily hard to get 4 out of 4. The winner of this will get to choose first when we play Fantasy CISO. Here we go. First question is, we're talking about most average monthly search queries. What gets more search queries? By the way, I did not create this. Our producer, Rich, created this, so I'm going to play along as well. Reconnaissance or scan, what do you think? And by the way, it's all searches, not just people in security searching, just all searches.
Scan, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because no one knows how to spell
reconnaissance. I am with you 100%. Oh. No one will spell that.
I was going to say no one wants to type. If I can type 4 letters or like 16, I'm going to type 4.
But it's very possible. Every time we think it's one thing, it's going to go the other way. I know we all want to say scan, but I bet you Rich put this in as a trick. I'm going to actually say reconnaissance because there may be some other thing out there. I don't think he'd do this without tricking us. I bet you anything. Are you both saying scan?
I'm saying scan, but you know what, David? I bet people are searching for reconnaissance because they're trying to figure out how to spell it.
That sounds impossible. Steven, what do you think?
I'm sticking with scan.
All right, I'm going reconnaissance just because I know Rich, and he wouldn't have done this if it wasn't going to trick us up. So let's see what happens. Correct answer is scan is right. Okay. All right.
It's closer than I thought, though.
I think there was a reverse logic game Rich was playing with us. All right, but I'm in your head, David. Oh, recon.
Recon.
If recon would have been more results. That's a good point.
I stopped.
But I agree with you. Nobody knows how to spell reconnaissance. All right, so you guys are 1 for 1. I'm 0 for 1. Here we go. Brute force social engineering. I'll say right now, I'm going social engineering.
Social engineering.
Social engineering as well.
We're all going social engineering on this one. All right, let's see what it is. It is social engineering. All right, 1 for 2 for me, 2 for 2 for the two of you. Doing well, both of you. Oh, this is a tough one. Enumeration, lateral movement, pivoting.
I'm going to say pivoting because it probably plays in like the life coach self-development space.
So, that's a good point. I'm going to say pivoting too. Also, it's startups. It has to do with.
Yeah.
I'll be different. I'll choose enumeration.
All right. Well, that different may. Who knows? Who knows? You make it. Get it. All right. Let's see how he goes.
Oh man.
Casey is 3 for 3. Casey, not to put too much pressure on you right now, but if you get this one, geez, this is a tough one. We got 4 here. Oh, this one looks tough. If you get this,
DOS.
You'll go 4 for 4.
People that got the extra D.
I'm going to go DOS.
Just DOS, not DDoS.
Not DDoS, just DOS.
I'm going to say DDoS. All right. So both of you are saying DOS and I'm saying DDoS? All right. Let's see what we got. Casey goes 4 for 4. Way impressive. Put him up. Do we have by the way, do we know, like there's only been 1 or 2 others that have done 4 for 4 here. Do we know who the 1 or 2 others are? Because it's so rare that it happens. But you join a very elite group, Casey, of people who've gone 4 for 4 in this game. Has anyone else pulled off 4 for 4 in the chat room? I will ask. Me? Matthew, you went 4 for 4? Excellent. Well, I'm impressed. Very, very good. All right, Casey, I'm going to ask you something because you actually opened with this, and I want to talk about this now, specifically what Sprocket Security is. You are a pen testing company. There are a lot of pen testing companies out there, but your whole thing is attack surface management with pen testing. Explain specifically what you're doing over at Sprocket.
Yeah, great question. So we built attack surface management from the ground up for the penetration testers. That means a lot of the answers that we're answering with ASM is for the penetration tester, right? Like, where is that website? Where is that header? Because I have this exploit that I need to execute today. And so we're taking all the similar penetration testing methodologies and techniques that have been performed in the traditional form, but we're putting them on recurrence. We're allowing ourselves to do bleeding edge, but the attack surface is changing all the time. So we want that opportunity to see when a new host is spun up, when marketing buys a new domain, and have that trigger all the automation and manual driven penetration test techniques all the time, and just do that year round.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about this today, but I'm going to use this opportunity right now to throw up another poll. So we do have, actually, let me see what the status of that other poll is. Okay, so 6 votes. By the way, 6 votes for PDF, 0 for Jason.
Fire your pen testing teams.
Jason, I'm sorry.
Fire the teams.
And 3 others. I don't know if I caught the others yet.
I wonder if others is like platform or HTML.
You said HTML reports.
That makes sense. Okay, HTML, which is not too far off of a PDF report too as well. All right, I'm going to make this now public. Would you, our audience, like a warm handoff to Sprocket Security, to Casey over there? Also, not only can you get a warm handoff, but Casey will be joining us at the meetup afterwards, where you'll get to hear that great story about the Sears Tower, Willits Tower, whatever the heck you want to call it, that I will tell you later, which is pretty darn funny. So stick around for that. So please go into our poll right now. Your options are yes and yes in the poll. So you answer either one, and we'll give you a warm handoff. They're doing some pretty cool stuff, and we'll get into that. And we're going to be playing. By the way, Casey, you will get to choose first when we play fantasy CISO in just a moment. All right, no questions in here, so I'm going to go to my own questions. Please get your questions in. Trust me, you all have questions about dealing with this nonsense called pen testing. All right. I think this is obvious, though, but is the answer more obvious than like the advice that Andrew Aiken gave about, blue teaming, purple teaming, of how do we avoid seeing the same security mistakes on pen tests year after year? I mean, I think the obvious is stop doing it once a year. Is there more I'm missing here?
Yeah, the snarky answer to that is like, you said year after year. That implies, the mindset of testing once a year.
Yeah.
As Sprocket, we basically say week after week, right?
Yeah.
Because we always are testing. But it really comes down to, fix it, right? But again, what is wrong? And so I'll give an example of something that we commonly see is DevOps will put out some new application, and it will go and we'll see there's default credentials or it's not even signed up, but it's live, it's public. We see it with ASM. We go ahead and test it. Boom. We gain access to it and can view data, right? And the finding goes out, they fix it, they remediate it, and that's great. And then 3 weeks later, we see the exact same thing happen. And the problem with that was that someone went in and actually fixed it, but maybe didn't fix it in the pipeline, Terraform or something. And so, or even the config in Docker or whatever it may be. And so it reappears on the next redeployment, right? And it's like a regression. And that would sit for your months on end until the next pen test. You might even fix it and get remediation validation. The pen tester says it's fixed, but when they redeploy a month later, it pops up again. So I think you really need to step back and, almost kind of do the 5 whys, right? Like, why did that happen? Why? Till you get to the root of the problem. And many times, a lot of the problems, it's operational, right? Not just a technology misconfiguration. And if you fix the operational, that category of vulnerabilities or those mistakes will just start to disappear.
Stephen?
I think it's bringing threat intelligence into it so you have context relevant to your environment and your company. I said already automating the routine tasks. I'm big on crowdsourced, leveraging crowdsourced partnerships as well. Real time.
Do you guys do bug bounties too?
Yeah, we do a bug bounty program. We've had a lot of success in our bug bounty program. It's a pragmatic approach, and same thing with ASM with continuous pen testing. That's the only thing that's going to really drive the. I go back to I'm a tangent here. Jen Easter.
Let me throw this question from Andrew out here. What's your favorite pen testing tool or suite? Got a favorite from Andrew Aiken?
NetExec, brilliant open source framework. Lots of great red team, reverse engineering malware contributors. The most in-depth wiki, and it's open source. It's as I used to do pen testing, you'd use like CrackMap exec or these other tools back in the day, and this is a successor for that. And if your red team's looking for something to really level up their game in the tool side, NetExec is an open source framework to help out.
I'd say.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna throw in there. Mine would be Nuclei, and how adaptable that is, and the fact that you can write your own plugins. It's really cool.
By the way, James Smerenberg throws out this 10% better tip, and I'm going to ask you, Stephen, have you done this before? Encourage non-pen test employees to notify the team about what they believe could be a vulnerability. Most firms tend to look down on this. Have you done that?
We do. Vulnerability disclosure programs are important, and they should be internal and external. Especially like we have 70,000 employees. I'm sure they all see things they want to. You hope that your employees have a vested interest in security at your company if you're managing culture well. And so you want to invite that feedback. So
can you literally go through the details of how you invite that feedback? I'd be interested to know how you communicate.
Yeah, we have a campaign that we do multiple times a year, and it's and we pair it with physical security because security isn't just what we do. And it's see something, say something campaign. And this is inviting employees to provide feedback for concerns they have in the physical or digital space.
And how do you, and here's, I think, the critical thing, because there's a lot of fear of if you see something, say something, it goes into the void and I never hear back. Like, did what I say actually have value? How do you loop that back to the employee?
So sometimes in automated fashions, like we have an inbox and then we try to go through like some reporting around that and provide feedback to those employees, automating the ingest of that feedback, saying, oh, I think this system here is maybe a risk and someone should take a look at it, and then prioritizing that. And I guess it could be noisy. I understand that, but it hasn't really.
No, but it's just like you don't want to think the employees are throwing things into the void. I'm always just intrigued.
Feedback. You have a feedback loop. You don't incentivize. Yeah. It's like reciprocity. So no one's going to give in if they don't get something back. And
right,
so
exactly.
It could be something very simple. It could be an automated thank you message. It could be
just a thank you.
An intern or junior analyst or someone assigned to that workload to assess that and just say, hey, thanks for reporting this. We're going to take a look at it. And so that.
And if you actually ever find something, saying, hey, like, we appreciate it. We actually found something. We're doing something about it. Kind of.
And for external, we get, every CISO out there gets blown up on LinkedIn from someone saying, I saw this on your website. I have some concerns, whatever. And maybe they ignore it. But what you should do is validate it, send it to your AppSec or Pentesting or Red Team or secure vulnerability management team. And then if it's valid and you're running a bug bounty program, invite them to the program.
All right. By the way, I'm enjoying, I don't want to reveal I'm actually enjoying some of these bad ideas. Marco Castillo says, and by the way, this is not that bad a bad idea. It's like, do not apply any patches or do any hardening. That just makes your pen testing investment worth it. I do not think that's such a horrible idea. The best one Marco.
Is so far is Aiken's comment about hiring a bunch of clowns to do your pen testing, and
I like that one.
Loud honking horns and juggling computers.
You know what? Actually, I don't think that's a bad idea, because all of a sudden, if you got a bunch of annoying clowns that ended up at your front door, you would let them in just to get rid of them, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
That could work. That could totally work. Let me ask you, Casey, because I think even my one of my co-hosts, Andy Ellis, he brought this up as a great way, as like a new CISO, to see wins. He said, go to all your employees and just simply ask, what is something we're not doing that should be done that could make us more secure, more efficient, more improved? Like either yourself, any of your customers, like what have you seen that, per what I was asking Stephen, in terms of getting everyone on board with this sort of like, get everybody involved in the sort of the pen testing sort of ecosystem, if you will. I'll kind of leave it broad like that. What's your say?
The things that come out are just so interesting, because those individuals they're in the weeds, right? They might be working in DevOps, or they might be working the front counter, the cash register, and they might have these ideas of like, oh, I think I noticed the security guard walks by, once a day, and it's like, oh, but I thought they're supposed to be there like, 5 times a day or something, right? And so you get these nuggets and visibility that they could be extremely simple, but they could be also something that you've never even thought of, and it just kind of blows your mind. So nothing stands out to me as like, this is the same thing I always hear, because every organization is a little bit different. But a lot of it comes down to the leadership and having, even the middle management champion, some of the security directions and things that they see lower level.
Well, I'll give you another good example of something like this, and I'm going to kind of mess up the specifics of this, but Jesse Whaley, who's the CISO over at Amtrak, he did he does various on-site inspections where he'll go out with the engineers, the train conductors, and just ask them like, oh, tell me your procedures or anything's messed up. And there are some security things where they have to actually put their phones into a lockbox and stuff. But then there's these multi-factor authentication issues. And again, I may be messing up specifics, but there was a request that goes, well, you're asking me to do this, but part of the procedure is I have to stick my phone in this lockbox. Like, It's messed up. And so when he's like, he doesn't realize that until he actually sees it on the ground, issues like that, which cause security problems whatsoever. And you need to actually ask some of these questions on the ground, if you will. Let me remind everybody that we do have a poll up of, if you would like a nice warm handoff to Sprocket Security, please go ahead and answer any one of those as well. And we got 8 people says PDF, nobody JSON already with regards to
this is the problem with
getting the reports. Yeah. So really, the poll is telling us we've got problems. By the way, there's a lot more of you could answer the poll that's here. So go ahead and answer the polls, either one of them. We'll have more polls up. Actually, for our game, we'll have another poll up there. Get some more questions in. I want them. I'm going to go. All right, let's talk about automation and pen testing. There are a lot of vendors out there that sell automated pen testing. I've also talked to pen testers saying that handles one strata of the pen testing environment. And also the fact they leave a fingerprint. You just, real pen testers know how to go right below that and avoid it. You're nodding your head, Stephen.
No way. So can I talk on
go ahead.
Vulnerability scanning? You're not scanning because that's part of every pen test. You're not doing that manually. Credential stuffing. This is when you load in your credentials. Attackers are chaining these through different proxies, through automations and stuff like this. The attackers are automating these methodologies. So the idea that you can't automate the pen testing, fuzzing, API testing. All of these can be. The only area that I would argue you can't automate is typically around business logic abuse. And this area you can sort of get to faster, again, through automation around like your API permission scopes and pulling those out to see what context that gives your app and what potential threats there are for business logic abuse. But so much of this could be automated. It feels like a cop-out to justify hands-on keyboard.
Yeah. Well, I'll challenge that.
Go ahead.
So do you use any automation to replace all the penetration testing?
No. We still have firms and experts and everything, but I'm saying you can automate a good chunk of it.
Okay. Because there are companies out there that says we've automated 100% of the penetration tests.
No,
I call BS on that.
No, you can't automate all of it at all. Like I just said, business logic abuse, you can't. Fuzzing, you can get initial areas of interest on, but then someone who's really good at fuzzing is like an artist. They're going to be working through that in a way that finds things no one even thought about. This is how we got the Log4j was going through fuzzing, and then the latency of time on return on the call and stuff like this. So I'll backtrack a bit, Casey. A good chunk can be automated to empower your pen testers and your firms, but obviously not all of it.
Yep. And that's my stance is the ones I hear that say we've 100% automated all the penetration testing, it's BS. Maybe they've gotten 40% of the way through, or they made a more advanced vulnerability scanner, but that's why penetration testing existed, right? Is to go above and beyond what vulnerability scanners and what you can codify. Can you automate a lot of it? Yeah. But this is my hot take on it. By the time you think you've automated even 60% to 80% of the penetration testing work, technology is advanced, so you got more work to do, right? And so it's this forever life cycle of chasing the technology advancements and the new classifications of attacks. So
also the initial vectors, automation can help out on lateral movement and pivoting in an environment, almost not at all.
Oh yeah. And many times since we get the opportunity to do bleeding edge testing, a new exploit will come out or a new technique to move laterally will come out, and we'll test it out. And we end up learning deeply how that works, because all the different types of configurations in the different environments that we see, we're like, oh no, it works only if it's configured this way, only if if they have users set up this way, and all of that is just going to break an automation, right? You automate one way, and then it's like, oh, you didn't account for the 50 different variables in here. Then it
also automating can break so much stuff, especially industrial controls or OT stuff that can't handle malformed packets. That it creates a denial of service on those types of systems. and breaks them. You don't want to, I mean, when you're actually like doing a graceful test of your environment, that's the last thing you want to do is cause an outage for your customer. So,
yeah. And that's actually one of the questions we get quite a bit as well too, is like, oh, you do have some automation paired with your manual driven testing. But aren't you going to just like break a bunch of stuff in our environment? And it's like, no, it's kind of like vulnerability scan. If you've never done a vulnerability scan at all, the first one may hurt a little bit more, but then you've learned some things and you've adjusted and you moved on and you probably fixed a few things too. But it's kind of the same way. There's always going to be the unknown risk in penetration testing, the things that, are completely blind to both sides of the party. And that happens, but it's better that that happens than it continuously happening. You not even know why it's happening.
And if you do break something, deflect and blame someone else.
Everyone blames the penetration tester anyway, so I'm always in the crosshair.
All right. By the way, if you have not registered for in 2 weeks for our next Super Cyber Friday, please click the button at the bottom. We have our next game to play, and it's brand new music. Let's hear it.
It's time to play Fantasy CISO.
All right. Fantasy CISO. I don't think I had heard that yet.
That's very
music there.
That's like
Fantasy CISO. All right. This is how Fantasy CISO works. Casey, because you won the public interest game, you get the chance to pick first. What we have is a series of, how many of these? 10 controls. So you'll each get 5 each. And you'll just go back and forth picking. And then what will happen is you'll have essentially your team of controls. And then we're going to get a random attack. And then both you, Casey, and you, Stephen, will argue why you are best situated for whatever the random attack is. And then the audience will vote as to who has the best controls. So, Casey, of these 10 controls, please pick one. Go first.
Just one I'm picking?
Well, we're going to go back and forth. You'll end up picking 5, but we go back and forth.
All right. I'll start at the top of the list and say network segmentation and micro segmentation.
All right. Casey, you got it. All right. Stephen, you picked one of the next 9.
Access control management.
Okay. All right. Whoops. I picked the wrong one. Hold on. Access control management. All right, Casey, you get to pick the next one.
Gonna go incident response management.
Okay. Oops. All right. Next one for you, Steve.
Data recovery capabilities.
All right. Casey.
EDR.
All right. Stephen, what do you want?
EDR.
By the way, penetration testing still hasn't been chosen. I just want to point that out.
I know. I was reading down the list. I was like, uh-oh.
I'm going to say I'm actually going to take penetration testing at this point. Yeah.
All right. Stephen takes it.
Oh, shouldn't I have taken that? I will do phishing simulation and testing.
You took EDR. I had to take something.
All right. What do you got? So I'm sorry, Casey. Now, Stephen, you got to go.
I don't believe dynamic application security testing is functional, but I will take code review and static testing.
Okay. So each got 4, and you're each going to pick your last one. So Casey, you first. Threat intelligence or web application firewalls?
I'll go web application firewalls.
All right. And so you get
threat intelligence,
whether you like it or not. All right. Now, not going to reveal the attack yet, but Casey, this is what your environment looks like. Stephen, this is what your environment looks like. All right. I am now going to click for the random attack, and then Casey, you will tell us why you are best situated. And it is demanding secret financial transaction within a company. So that is the attack. They have demanded I don't know how exactly that happened, but somehow they are getting financial transactions to happen within your company. How are you best situated to stop or manage that, or stop the bleed from that?
Stop the bleed from that, huh? Well, phishing simulation and testing would have been the prevention of that.
It obviously squeezed through that.
So my instant response management is really tight. So we already know how to handle this.
Okay. So that's what you're leaning on, the incident response management. All right. Stephen, why are you best situated to handle this?
I would say because of threat intelligence providing insight ahead of time to this sort of threat actor group, being able to tighten access controls around financial data and restrict them, and go through data recovery if anything is lost here.
I don't know how confident you are in any of this right now.
It's a weird one. I'm like, well,
it's a weird one. All right, so it's all right. Let's get the poll. I'm going to make the poll visible right now. It is now visible, and I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds to vote. It says fantasy CISO winner. So what you are voting for is who, Casey's environment or Steven's environment, who is best situated to go ahead and deal with this environment. So I want you to start voting, and I'm going to count down from 10 actually right now. So hold it. Okay, here the votes are coming in. Casey, so far you're winning right now. I think it's because you have incident response management. But you know what? Yeah. Stephen makes a good argument on his. All right. Oh no, now it's coming in very close, very close. I'm going to give you a 10-second countdown, and then we're going to call it. So, oh my God, it's going right back and forth right now. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. It's unbelievably close right now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And actually, since we're on a delay, I have to let it go another 4 or 5 seconds. But it looks...
That's close.
I think it's Casey you won on this
one.
12-9 on this. Good job. Good job. Yeah. All right. And also, people are also clicking on the do you want a warm handoff to Sprocket Security? Oh, no, now you really pulled ahead. You're now 16-9. Yeah, okay. So, Casey, you won. Sorry, you picked very, very badly on this one, Stephen.
I was hoping the scenario could be addressed through...
Often, by the way, we played this game, and it is random. It's often just one control is what the argument is usually. It's just one control. I had IR. I win here. All right. Good job, both of you. Excellent. All the way around. All right. Let's get to, do we have any questions? Yes, we do actually have a few questions that came in. Let's go from Tina. I haven't even read this. Let's just throw it out there. How do you respond to a customer who says they want a pen test but don't want you to attempt to exploit any of the vulnerabilities or weaknesses found? Does that happen? Let me ask that. Does that happen?
Yes, it's artificial constraints being put on the penetration test, and therefore they will never know the impact. And so therefore they can't really do a risk-based analysis of what the true risk of that vulnerability is in their environment and what it looks like. So it's just a matter of educating that point through and many other points, but that's something you really should not do in any type of security testing.
Casey said it very well. When I was a pen tester, we would call this scope sabotage.
Yes.
When the customer
That's a good line.
would basically sabotage the scope to prevent pivoting or actually realizing the full risk of an exploit. And so when you speak to stakeholders, you really can argue you're part of this sort of pen testing program by being an entity that operates in the world, whether you like it or not. It's just, are you willing to pay for a professional to make a write-up and go through this with you, or are you willing to just find out on your own on a very bad day?
By the way, Larry Whiteside said, test me, but don't really test me. I like that.
There could be a compromise there, right? If that's a struggle that you're having with your leadership or something, you're caught in the middle when you're working with your pen test company. Many times the compromise will be, hey, look, we have initial foothold or exploitation. We're going to move into some sort of post-exploitation phase. I can let you know when that's happening, right? And that's kind of maybe that's a meet in the middle. Maybe it's not, but it's worth a try.
All right, a couple of things I want to quickly mention. So scope sabotage, that's the phrase, the thing. And by the way, I'm going to throw in another tease. Not only will I tell you the awesome story about rollerblading, the Sears Tower, Willits Tower, whatever you want, and a security incident, but I will also tell you because I used to write for Second City out of Chicago, and the guy worked with defined something called a humorectomy, because it made me think about when you said scope sabotage. So if you want to know what a humorectomy is, It was a pretty funny definition of that. I'll explain to you what a humorectomy is. We used to unfortunately have to conduct humorectomies, even though we were trying to write something funny when I was working for Second City at the time. So want to know those two stories? Come to the meetup afterwards. And this also gives me the time. We'll talk about anything you would like to talk about, ideally in security. But heck, any issue you have for which you want feedback from the community, please come to our meetup at the end. Just do me a favor. Type the word meetup : and then just write what's the question you want to ask for the community. I'll have a list of it. And then for everybody who shows up at the meetup at the end on Discord, remember that link at the bottom will change. We will ask that question. And why don't you do this right now? Where it says register for hacking tabletop exercises at the bottom, why don't you go ahead and click on that right now? Click on it right now to join our meetup that's going to happen in 2 weeks. You will not be taken out of this meetup. You'll very much stay in this one, but you can start registering for the next one as it comes up. Meetup, what's a humorectomy and is it painful? Andrew, we will ask that question for the meetup. So but please go ahead and ask. It is painful in terms of the funny. Yes, it is painful in terms of the funny. And
are there puns?
There was, but no, but I love that term humor. I mean, I'll describe what the hell happened. It was pretty darn funny what happened. And I will tell you, we were writing, because I would write corporate entertainment scripts. I was writing a script for Motorola. There's your tip. It was something and that's when I heard the term, trying to make something funny from Motorola. And they're the ones who conducted the humorectomy. And I'll tell you exactly what that is. All right, let's go back to our questions. We have a bunch of them. Well, I like this one from Zahed Camille. Let's throw this one out. This is a good question. What is the craziest pen test story you have had throughout your career? Excellent question, Zahed. Okay, either one of you, jump out on this one.
I have one. I'll go.
Go ahead.
This isn't me, but this was someone on my team in the past. Now, physical penetration testing always has the best stories, in my opinion. And this was a physical pen test where it was a meat packing plant, and the guy had to crawl through like the shredder of meat to get into the building, and he did.
He actually crawled through a shredder?
Yeah. It was not during business hours, so it
was not on. But had it been turned on,
he would be shredded beef.
Holy crap!
But he's like, okay, no one's here, no one's on site, so hopefully it just won't sporadically turn on. And he crawls through, but he's covered in this meat. He trips some sort of alarm. Well, actually, the alarm he tripped was he called the night before and said, hey, I'm going to be doing a physical in this area. And he was kind of new to the testing. And he called the cops and said, hey, just so you know, in case. And so the cops were like, yeah, no, like, nice try. We're gonna come, at that time. So the cops came after he was already in there, busted him. So here he is in handcuffs in the back of a cop car.
Covered in meat?
Covered in red meat. I thought that one was hilarious.
That's good.
Hopefully, is there a photo of that? That would be pretty funny.
I don't know. But that would be great.
All right, Steven, you got a good one?
Yeah, I was sent to a customer on engagement. They had a very locked down, very restricted, you would call them government level controls. And when I got there, they weren't expecting me. And so they had like a palm reader with PIN code to get through this man trap door. And then they had this conference room lobby for people to wait in. And I just sat in the conference room lobby and I was like, I've been hired to do this. So they had Ethernet jacks in there for like a phone conference. And I just started going to town, just unplugging while they waited left me in there for like 30 minutes.
Did anyone question? 30 minutes is enough time.
It was plenty enough
More
time.
than enough. So what did I just see here? Oh, the poll. By the way, if you haven't clicked on the poll about getting the handoff to Sprocket Security, please make sure you do that. We have 10 minutes left here, and here a few more questions. Here we go. All right. So this is different than the thing about the person saying don't really pen test us. This comes from Matthew Bybee over at StatCom, director of CISO. How important is it to define scope? Are there times you don't define and just say, go to town? Rules of engagement for a penetration test. I got to assume you got to have some level of scope. Yes?
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever done one where you just said, go to town?
We did a bug bounty, our first bug bounty program we did an open scope, and this was to find as many issues as we can. But when you do this, you social engineering can be the most noisy of tests, and so by not limiting the scope, you're going to invite operational impact and distractions that you maybe don't plan for. So
it's true. That's a very good point, because in our platform, for that exact reason, we built a little notification of when social engineering is happening, so that deconfliction process can happen, but yet you can kind of keep this open scope, right? In regards to phishing, at least. I'll say what I've seen with the movement of continuous penetration testing, right? And the attack surface always changing. It's really hard to basically say my scope is X. You can get to domains, but like after domains, it starts to kind of get wishy-washy, right? Which system within this domain is hosted on a third party or a shared host I'm not authorized to test. That was a significant challenge for us when building ASM, to basically say, how do we make sure that we are targeting the right systems, the systems we are technically authorized to test, and not have any accidents? Because as soon as you write that, like in a rules of engagement, to say this is what the scope is at the beginning, it could change the next day. And so we put parameters in there to basically say what's in scope, what's out of scope, and make some assumptions. And if we can't make an assumption, then we just notify the organization, hey, is this authorized for testing?
It's also calling out, you're testing that for a reason. And what you want tested, you need to have a good reason, not just to find all the issues, especially when you're talking about web app, digital, e-commerce, these things. You want to be very, you want to test certain subsets of that. And if you have a broader scope, and let's say you want your web app tested, but you added web app and infrastructure. If you get all of these infrastructure findings and no one's actually focusing on the web app side, it looks like they're providing value and busy work, but you're missing out on this whole attack surface. So having a defined scope is important for like strategic objectives in your program too.
By the way, I noticed that Peter Gregory posted his best pen test story, and I took a quick link. It's just a link right there. And essentially, it's a mail merge fail on a pen test, which seemed quite humorous right there. So to take a look at that right there. All right. I'm going to do a quick wrap up, and then we're going to come back and we'll just answer as many questions we got left. By the way, I believe it's Stephen. Are you hiring?
I am hiring. You go to careers on MGM's website. I think we have 4 or 5 new positions being posted this week or this coming week, and some have been posted now across security engineering, incident response. I think we have some solution architects. Yeah, we're hiring.
Okay. Well, and Casey, I know that you're hiring as well. So another incentive. All right. You got the story about the humorectomy, about the security incident with rollerblading at the Sears Tower, and job opportunities with both Casey and Stephen. What more incentives do you need to come to our meetup on Discord at the end of this, which will be in less than essentially about 6 minutes. But let me do a quick wrap up. Huge thanks to Casey's company, and that's Sprocket Security. Again, if you have not clicked the poll to get a warm handoff, do that right now, and you can have a nice handoff to them. Okay, in about 95 minutes, we will be doing our show, Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review. That's with Rich, who's our producer and reporter, and he hosts that show, and that's actually over on YouTube. So we do the discussion and conversation over YouTube. You can subscribe, just hear the audio only, but the advantage of joining the video, the live, which is only about 25 minutes long, is you get to participate in the discussion and you get to be part of the event as well. So we'll have Bethany Delude of the CISO for the Carlisle Group, who will be our guest giving input on that show. I think, Stephen, you've done that show before, haven't you? The headlines? Yeah. It's a fun show. Also, stick around for our meetup, as I mentioned. Hey, we can change that link. Go ahead and change that link, Aaron. Look at that. Super fast. You'll see that's it. If you look in the lower I've always had problems with this with Discord, but the lower left corner, that is where your audio and video settings are. So when you join into the group, we'll have that. If the group gets too big, we can actually break out into smaller groups as well. Remember, type meetup : if you have specific questions to ask. Hey, you want to sponsor a Super Cyber Friday? Why don't you email me at info@cisoseries.com. We have openings starting next month, so get in on that. It will be a lot of fun. That is it. All right, we have exactly 5 minutes. You know what? Let me ask this question. Casey, what two things. One is, what have we not asked, which I know there's tons that we could do, but have we not asked that we should have been talking about? And B, is there any specific thing you would like to tell our audience or an offer through Spark at Security, anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. Probably the number one thing is like, are you just a scanner, right? Like, are you just automatically scanning stuff and regurgitating? Absolutely not. We are a little bit different than a crowdsourced model as well, too. We bring on proven methodologies, experienced testers, and we pair that with the ASM and the automation and frameworks to allow them to distribute their tests at scale. So if you have a large organization, things are constantly changing, you're kind of scratching your head. It's like, what unknown critical vulnerabilities are out there that my scanning tools can't tell me? I need extension of my red team or my pen test team. Think of us. We'll be glad to help.
All right. And Stephen, any last closing comments? And then we'll get, I have a couple of quick questions I want to ask both of you.
You need to have some sort of continuous pen testing program if you're running a program. This is essential. Point in time assessments might check a box for compliance, but they're not giving you a real world perspective. And so similar to what Casey's offering and this approach, it's really essential to a strong vulnerability management program and knowing where your weak spots are. So,
all right. We have a few minutes left. I want to ask a question, one from Aman Sood, and then another question that's a nice companion to this question from Tina. So we'll throw each one up. And let me ask both of them before you answer. First, from Aman, has your pen test ever interrupted a critical business operation, or know of somebody else where that's happened? And then Tina's question, which is, have you been able to effectively do a pen test on a digital twin of the environment to further reduce the risk of breaking things? So similar to that. So have you done it? Have you ever created a digital twin? That seems really hard to create a true digital twin, but what have you seen? Either one of you jump in here.
You want to take the first one, Casey?
Yeah. I'll take the first one. Have you ever brought down critical infrastructure? I would be lying to you if I said in the penetration testing process, never brought down critical infrastructure. It happens. I will say this day and age, it happens a lot less because both infrastructure and applications are built with a little bit more resiliency nowadays, but there's always the unknown, especially in the middleware where things spin and things go haywire. So it happens rarely. Usually the tester is the first to know if something's going wrong. And you course correct and you fix it, and you never encounter that problem in the real world again, which is probably 10 times harder to troubleshoot.
Now, regarding Tina and the digital twin, is that even doable?
In applications, you can get close. You can set up an application, say, I want to do a deep dive web application assessment with credentials, dive deep on it. It's set up very similar to prod. It never is totally exactly the same as prod. So it really kind of depends on the variance there. Can it be done and actually get a good understanding of the risks associated with the application? Yes.
Okay. All right, Stephen, let you answer and then we'll wrap this sucker up.
I think it's a desirable thing to be able to test a digital twin. I don't think it's pragmatic or practical at scale, duplicating your infrastructure one for one. I mean, you might have high availability infrastructure and be able to test one region or one instance over another and get close to there. But I've not seen much across the Fortune 500, and I've worked at a few of them and tested a few of them where I've seen that as actual an achievable objective and being able to do it in reality. So it's in theory, it makes sense. The cost of it is and what you can do to mitigate impact, I feel like there's diminishing returns there.
All right. So just to let you know, what format do you get a pen test report? 20, say PDF. We got one JSON. We got one. It does happen.
I think this is an industry problem then.
Yeah,
all right.
Death to PDFs.
Huge thanks to Casey. Huge thanks to Stephen. Thank you both. Everybody, click the link at the bottom. We're going to get the story about the Sears Tower. We're going to get the humorectomy. What was the third thing I mentioned? I forgot what the third thing. There was a third thing. Do you remember? Someone's going to remind me what the heck it was. There was a third. Anyways, click super. Oh, also, what am I saying? Yes, the third thing is both of you are hiring. That was the third thing. Yes. So talk to the two of them about hiring. All right, click the button on the bottom of the screen. Aaron, take us out.